steal the words of Paul Samuelson, this is what he would have said with the updated figures. He would have said that economists have correctly predicted 13 of the last 8 crises. Now, you take that as you like. I'm actually here to speak about real estate today, and whether we like it or not, real estate is indispensable for most of us. During the dot-com bubble and subsequent crisis, everyone was talking about a virtual office. Some people were even talking about a virtual home. Many people do have virtual presences online, but I suggest to you that real estate itself is a necessary evil, sometimes a great joy. And my main role this evening is to give you some sort of indication as to the role in which it has played and the role which it perhaps will continue to play in the rather turbulent times we find ourselves in. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the field, you might be a little bit surprised to know that the average or typical corporation, if there is such a thing, spends approximately 15 to 20% of its annual budget on real estate related expenses, second only to human expenses, of course, to labour or employment expenses. Now, we can argue the average or typical corporation till the cows come home, but we're not exactly floating in midair here at the moment. Some people say that this sort of lifestyle is actually possible with a laptop computer, a mobile telephone, a suitcase, some clothes. Then what is to prevent you from being a wonderful travelling salesman, cruising the world, doing your business, and driving up to meet your clients? Might sound fairly credible as long as you're living in a cash economy. But as soon as you want to go and open a bank account, or to actually form any sort of legal entity, they will turn you out on the street unless you can provide them with some form of fixed address. In the UK judicial system, if you declare yourself as being of no fixed address or having no fixed abode, then they generally tend to treat you like a vagrant and lock you up in the detox cells, which is not necessarily the perfect way in which to hold oneself out as a successful businessman. So, it's been around for quite a long time. For some remarkable reason, people do like this real solid feel. It might have started something like this some many thousand years ago. The issue of 4 walls and a roof seemed to be very attractive to individuals. I think the psychologists or perhaps the sociologists are better able to explain to you exactly why. But what perhaps you might also like to consider is why in the modern age people are actually contemplating building and dealing with these sort of things. The one on the right actually exists. I guess you've probably seen it on the television, in certain newspaper adverts, on advertising billboards. It's the Burj Al Arab Hotel, tallest hotel in the world in Dubai. The one on the left does not exist. It's sometimes referred to as the Da Vinci Tower, sometimes as the Dynamic Tower, and every single floor rotates independently of every single other floor in the building, or would do if this were actually ever to be built. And I'd like to pose the question to you, why? Would anyone want to actually build that? Is anybody...
It's a challenge.
A challenge, so akin to climbing Everest. It would be just as much of a challenge to dig a hole that deep in the ground, actually, and make that rotate. I mean, is there any common sense, any business sense in seeking to build something like this? I'm not a Luddite, I'm not seeking a return to the Dark Ages, but is anybody able to come up with an economic or even an artistic perspective as to why this sort of plan should be on the drawing board even? I beg your pardon?
Differentiation.
Fresh air?
Differentiation.
Differentiation. Your building should be different from the next door building. Indeed so. The classical real estate advisor would tell you that there are no 2 pieces of real estate that are ever alike. and you can always find something to differentiate. It's, to my mind, exceptional extravagance, and I think it probably never will be. Yes, sir, down the back. Efficiency.
Yeah.
Would you care to expound on that a little bit?
Because you're building on the towers, the field that you're using as a space is limited, so you are actually building on the high.
Oh, I don't have an issue with the high-rise part, none at all. I just have a bit of an issue with the fact that every single floor should rotate to a different tempo and at a different pace in order to create the so-called dynamic architecture whereby it always looks as if it's moving and you never quite get the same perspective. Pride might be another great word for it, but like it or loathe it, these real estate issues are with us, and here's a picture of my hometown. Lovely, isn't it? This is St Albans Marketplace, and over the course of history, since moving from the caves towards the development of these dynamic towers, people have sought to bring buildings together and place them in close proximity to each other. Any thoughts as to why that might be desirable or advantageous or have happened? No thoughts at all?
Social interaction.
Social interaction, okay, very nice. What about, it's not bad actually, what about in business terms though? We are a business school and we try to observe things in economic terms in many ways. What could be the economic advantage of bringing people together rather than allowing them to mix in a great caravan car park through their mobile lifestyle?
I think they started out as marketing or marketplaces. Often they popped up where originally horses would need to be watered, fed and so on, and then villages started, towns began, and so that's why they're spread about like they are.
Not bad at all actually. It is indeed the marketplace is the rationale for the bringing together of dwellings. Urban theory, land use theory covers this sort of concept whereby one will look at the area of production, the distance. It's a simple sort of logistical exercise in many ways, the distance needed to transport to market, the relative cost of being close to your consumer base, etc. And over the years, towns, this is market day indeed, where people bring their mobile little stalls into the centre of town. Towns did, for that exact reason, morph into these mighty metropolises such as Budapest. I'm not sure it's the best aerial photograph you can get, but not just a mere 80,000 people, but 2 million people, and in many cities 15, 20 million people coming together in theory to gain the benefit of a market. But at the same time, they put themselves under great stress as a whole. They create a new entity, a new real estate market, and it is these markets, or the activity in these markets, which has actually played a defining role in bringing us to the state which we are now, which some people would perhaps quite rightly call crisis. Now, moving to a slightly different tack. Sorry I don't have many words for you to read there, but I know that people like to look at pictures rather than to read lots of text on the slides. Here are a few items. Anybody prepared to offer an opinion as to what these items have in common and why they are on this particular slide? It is purely accidental that the chandelier is the one at the top, actually. They could have been arranged in any order.